Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Doomlings. So, it's been a few months since I checked in on Spider-Man, and I wanted to end this one with a more easygoing video about the webhead. And I'm going to use a rumor as a springboard. There's been a lot of totally unverified news stories floating around that the next MCU Spidey movie is going to dive headfirst into the multiverse and just place a ton of emphasis on that. Now, I should say here that I'm not putting a ton of stock in the reporting of that rumor, beyond the fact that it wouldn't surprise me if that's something Sony and Marvel wanted to do. My point with this video is not at all to try to present this rumor as some huge news or convince you it's true. More, I'm highlighting it because it gives me a really good opportunity to talk about why I really do not want the multiverse to be a prominent feature in the MCU Spider-Man 4. It's just looking more and more likely that this is a feature of Spider-Man's storytelling that isn't going away anytime soon, so it seems worth addressing. But first, I'd like to remind you to click on that subscribe button down below and ring that bell, maybe even share this video with some other fans of Puny Parker if you really want. It would definitely help out the channel and be really appreciated. But now, let's talk about the very interesting position the next movie is in.
Am I going mad? This is the one that's supposed to be our leader? Give me a break.
I enjoyed No Way Home, and I love the Spider-Verse films, but I'm sorry, I refuse to accept the idea that this universe hopping should be the norm in all Spider-Man movies going forward, especially when the animated film series has that concept in its actual name. Those movies are going to keep exploring the Spider-Verse. Do we really need Tom Holland's Spider-Man series going down that exact same path? Now, the last movie was, admittedly, a really fun team-up. It had a great Doctor Who special feel to it, but I don't feel like it's a well that they should turn to all the time. That doesn't mean Maguire and Garfield's Parkers can't be used elsewhere, or even return in their own films, but here, I think the series clearly needs to get stripped down significantly, and not try to recreate that huge event. I love the ending of No Way Home. It's melancholy and a bit downbeat, but with a real hint of excitement for the future. And I share that excitement. I think it's the perfect way to transition into Peter's college years and have it really hit home as relatable. And I know that might sound weird to say about a situation where all Peter's friends and family have magically forgotten who he is. Not exactly a thing that happens to you or I often, but it's a very nice genre fiction-y way to get at feelings that many of us have when leaving home and going to college or living by yourself for the first time. It supercharges the idea that childhood and all the comforts of home and your old friends may not be around anymore. That kind of fresh start can be exciting, but also potentially very scary and isolating. And that's very close to where we find Peter at the end of that movie. This is something that Spider-Man has always done well, and I think is really central to his appeal. He has these very relatable issues and feelings, but blown up to a grand operatic scale with genre fiction trappings. And I love the way that the character can strike that balance. Heightened enough to never feel like a kitchen sink drama, but grounded and human enough that we can all recognize at least a little bit of our own lives and problems in his. And it's with that in mind that I think this new film will have the perfect opportunity to give Holland's Peter a story in a very different mode than what we've seen from him before. Holland's performance in Civil War felt like such a breath of fresh air when he debuted. But I think now is the time to start chipping away at his golly gee Mr. Stark persona at least a little bit, where we can pick up with him and some of that optimism and big-hearted excitement has maybe been buried, as the tougher reality of his post-Aunt May life really sets in. This isn't to say he's Daredevil now or anything, just that Tom Holland can create a little distance from the more whiz-kid persona of his previous films and kind of mature. Something that would feel pretty natural, considering everything the character's gone through. And look, I know I'm just kind of pitching things now, but one thing I would love to see if we get Peter in college and working a job is a complete disconnect from the whole Spider-Man goes to schools for geniuses thing that Marvel has really latched onto in the past decade or so in some adaptations. Now obviously in Homecoming he goes to a special STEM school, and I remember the 2017 cartoon had him going to Horizon High, which leaned into the upscale private school aspect even more. And I don't know, I guess that's fine, but it's just never really been my favorite thing for Marvel's defining everyman hero, even if he is a scientifically gifted guy. Now they have a real opportunity to put him in a less I hang out with literal billionaires type of setting. MJ and Ned got into MIT, but Peter has no school record at all now. Maybe you can have him get a GED and go to a local community or state school where they would accept basically anyone, and have him in the more working class settings of the Maguire films, away from Avengers Towers or portals to other dimensions. Basically, give me a Spider-Man story without the bells and whistles of the multiverse or the greater MCU. Now, I know the beats of like a anti-multiverse video that you might expect me to hit here. The multiverse can really make the stakes feel far lower. It means there's a near endless supply of the same character, often lessening the impact of character deaths, and so on. But really, that's not what I'm trying to do here. There's been plenty of good videos made already about limitations of the multiverse as a storytelling device. What I care about most is that this version of Spider-Man, a take on the character that I very much still like, gets the back to basics movie that I think he really deserves. There's been rumors floating around that the villain may be Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk, and you know, I hope that's the case. Not just because of D'Onofrio's performance, though definitely that too, but because Kingpin is a bit more grounded of a villain, someone terrorizing the neighborhoods of New York. Also, there's the fact that he was already the bad guy in the first Spider-Verse movie, so surely they wouldn't put Kingpin at the center of two multiverse movies. I mean, right? I don't know. I also wouldn't mind getting some new Spidey villains in the mix. I definitely think Chameleon has some potential to be shaped by a director into something really interesting. I swear, there is a great Spider-Man movie starring that character as the villain out there somewhere. Well, okay, that's if Sony hasn't already decided to make a movie about him that gets between 4 and 16% on Rotten Tomatoes by then. Still, Chameleon aside, I'll happily take Kingpin. One of my first Spider-Man videos on this channel saw me talking about how much I'd like to see Holland's Spider-Man and D'Onofrio's Fisk really clash, back when that seemed like a far more remote possibility, so it'd be great to finally see it on screen. Either way, after the massive success of No Way Home, the best move for the MCU is to go back to basics and focus on what makes Spider-Man special. And it's not just because it'll get back to the character's greatest strengths. I think there's a real fatigue out there for multiverse stories that just didn't exist in 2021. The Spider-Verse movies will probably continue to get a pass there, as they should, but the MCU has already dug themselves into this multiverse hole deep enough, even if the box office success of Deadpool and Wolverine says otherwise. But even that movie states that it's kind of over it. I really hope they realize that now is a good time, after John Watts' trilogy, to reset the Holland films a bit. Immediately trying to figure out a bigger marketable hook than No Way Home had may seem appealing to them in the short term, but I think it will continue to dilute those big events down to a shrug in the long term, which arguably has already happened in Marvel comic events. This time around, I really hope they just give us something a lot leaner. And I think the 70s college era of Spider-Man comics provide the perfect blueprint for this approach. There's still a lot of great untapped stories there. I feel like it's a period of Spidey's comic life that often gets overlooked. We go back to high school over and over again, but Peter was in college far longer, and there's still so many characters from that era that have barely gotten the spotlight. It's a chance for a new director to explore Holland's Peter Parker in different ways, maybe with a more mature tone than the Home trilogy, mirroring the character's age and growth, and also working to build out a new supporting cast. Now, I know Marvel would probably hate doing one of these without Zendaya. She's a huge name at this point. but I think it would be really interesting if they stuck to their guns on that ending and made you really feel Peter's loneliness by not having MJ or Ned in the movie this time around. I'm excited about the next film, I really am, and I hope they don't waste that great ending on turning the next Spider-Man movie into a cameo dispenser. I can enjoy those from time to time, but there's potential here for something so much more than that, and I hope Marvel doesn't think it involves the multiverse. So figuring out what they should do with the next Spider-Man is already tough, but I'm not sure anything is harder than trying to figure out what type of card game to play when you have friends or family there with wildly different levels of gaming experience. And that is where Doomlings saves the day, which is a little ironic since it's actually a game about the end of the world. Thankfully, this apocalypse is fun and really whimsical. Doomlings has a very easy setup, comparable to the most casual of card games, so you won't scare away any friends who run out of the room at the first sight of a complex gaming system. But if you like those, Doomlings has you covered too. Because these trait cards aren't just cute, playing them opens up all kinds of exciting and super strategic gameplay across rounds known in the game as different ages. There's a massive variety in what the trait cards can do, and playing as many of them as you can before the end of the world wins you the game. But I think most importantly, sets you up to mess with your friends in a lot of really funny and creative ways. Doomlings and its expansion have absolutely crushed it on Kickstarter for very good reason, because it's a game that finds the perfect balance between deep gameplay and accessibility, and the cards look great doing it too. So go to that link down below to check it out and use my code MIDNIGHT20 to get 20% off. Or just use that QR code on screen. Again, that's MIDNIGHT20 to get 20% off.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.